ॐ अज्ञानतिम्रान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाखया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपकथामह्यं ददति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतपदकमलां श्रीगुरुवैष्णवंश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणरघुनाथान्वितां तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्ण चैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगणललित श्रीविशाख अन्वितंश्च नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नाम्ने नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारणे निर्विशेषशून्यवादी पाश्चात्यादेशतारिणे वञ्चकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकान्त राधाकान्त नमोऽस्तुते तप्त काञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे Reading from Śrīla Prabhupāda-līlāmṛta, Volume 1, Chapter 32.
Recording is not started.
Yeah, that I do know. Okay. So, reading from Śrīla Prabhupāda-līlāmṛta, Volume 1, Chapter 32. India. Dancing White Elephants, Calcutta, August 29, 1970. For the first time in almost 3 years, Prabhupada returned to India, to Calcutta, to his hometown. Although it was late and the journey from Tokyo had been 12 hours, Prabhupada felt happy as he descended the staircase from the airplane. Achyutananda and Jayapataka, his only American disciples in India, were standing on the airfield, and as they saw him approaching in his saffron silk robes, they bowed down. Prabhupada smiled and embraced them. They ushered him to a flower-bedecked car and accompanied him to the terminal building, where he entered the VIP lawn. Some of Prabhupada's godbrothers and old Calcutta friends were present to receive him, and a kirtan party from the Chaitanya Mutt was chanting. The reception was large and festive. As the room resounded with Hare Krishna, Prabhupada took his seat. The sound of the kirtan, the many pictures of Krishna, and the smell of incense and jasmine flowers combined with Prabhupada's transcendental presence to transform the drab airport into a heavenly scene. Indians crowded forward to place flower garlands around Prabhupada's neck, and as the garlands piled higher, Prabhupada removed them. But the garlands kept coming, and again they piled up, almost covering Prabhupada's face. The American devotees watched in fascination as the Bengali brahmacharis played their mridanga with exotic rhythms. The people in the crowd pressed in closer to touch Prabhupada's feet and ask his blessings, and Prabhupada smiled, seeming quite at home. When the kirtan ended, he began to speak. I am coming back to the city after 3 years. Hare Krishna. I have been around the world and have found that happiness and peace cannot be established in this world by materialistic advancement. I have seen Japan, which is highly advanced in machines and technology, yet there is no real happiness there. But the people of India, even if they do not understand the significance of Sankirtan, they enjoy listening to it. My advice to the Indians is that if you advance only in science and technology without paying attention to Harinama, then you will remain forever backward. There is tremendous strength in Harinam. Reporter. You have said, and I quote, even communism, if it is without Krishna Nam, is void. Why do you say that, Prabhupada? Why do you refer to communism in particular? Without Krishna consciousness, everything is void. Whatever you do, Krishna must remain in the center. Whatever you are, whether you are communist or capitalist or anything else, it doesn't matter. We want to see whether your activities are centered around Krishna. Reporter. Right now there is too much turmoil in Bengal. What is your advice to us at this time, Prabhupada? My advice is to chant Hare Krishna. This is the piece of advice to both the capitalist and the communist. All the animosity between them will cease completely and all their problems will be solved if they take this advice. The crowd, affirming Prabhupada's word, began to shout, Sadhu, Sadhu. Prabhupada sat in the back seat on his way from the airport to home of Mr. Das Gupta on Hindustan Road. Outside the car window, the familiar scenes of Calcutta passed by. For the newcomers riding with him, however, Calcutta was foreign and unfamiliar. Gaunt, loitering cows and street dogs, small horses pulling huge loads, barefoot rickshawalas, open shops with exotic foods, dense crowds of pedestrians, the sultry heat, and the incredible traffic. These, although familiar to Prabhupada, plunged the disciples who had flown with him into cultural shock. Tamal Krishna looked nervously at the driver who swerved in and out of traffic, honking his horn. Prabhupada laughed softly. Tamal Krishna, how do you like this driving? Achyutananda and Jayapataka, however, were acclimatized to Calcutta and had learned to appreciate its culture. They had met high-class, cultured Bengalis who accepted them as sadhu despite their American birth. They had preached in many homes and had attracted curious crowds by chanting in public. They had not, however, achieved a solid foothold for ISKCON, but now Prabhupada had come to change that. He would preach wonderfully, just as he had done in America, and his disciples were eager to serve as his instruments. He would be their vital force, their inspiration, for he was empowered by Lord Chaitanya. Prabhupada reached the home of Mr. Das Gupta at almost midnight. Many people wanted to see him, and when Devanand Maharaj tried to turn them away, Prabhupada said, No, no, let them come in. Prabhupada's sister Bhavatarini arrived with an array of special dishes she had cooked. We can't eat now. One of the sannyasis protested. It's late at night. No, Prabhupada said, we must eat everything. Whatever my sister cooks, we have to eat. This is her favorite activity. She likes to cook for me and feed me. Everyone must take prasadam. The devotees at the Chaitanya Mutt had also cooked a feast, and as Prabhupada was honoring the prasadam prepared by his sister, the prasadam from the Chaitanya Mutt arrived. He took a little and induced his followers to eat sumptuously. It was 9 a.m. Prabhupada sat in his room with Achyutananda, Jayapataka, and Devananda Maharaj. He explained how irresponsible letters from his disciples in India had perpetrated within ISKCON a deep misunderstanding of the spiritual master's position. He quoted the verse Sakshat Dharitvena Samasta Shastrayer and explained it. The Guru is one and equal level with Hari, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is not God, but he is the dearest servant of God. Prabhupada continued preaching to his disciples, clearing away any misconceptions about the spiritual master's position. All the past unpleasant events, he said, were now being rectified. The devotees should continue working together with new life and vigor. Achyutananda asked Prabhupada if he could take sannyas. The Indians, he said, would respect a sannyas more. Prabhupada agreed that would help. Sannyasa would help Achyutananda's preaching, and he said that Jayapataka should also take sannyas. The ceremony would be in a week on Radhashtami. The Amrita Bazar Patrika carried a front page news story of Prabhupada's arrival. A photo showed Prabhupada walking with his hand in his bead bag surrounded by young sannyasis carrying dandas. Many VIPs have come to Dum Dum Airport before, but never have we seen gaiety and celebrations of this magnitude. It was difficult to imagine that he was 75 years old because he was completely fresh after his long journey. With a little smile on his face, he blessed one and all with the word Hari Bol. Prabhupada wrote to the devotees in Japan. In India, from the very moment we step down from the airplane, there is good propaganda work going on. The boy Bruce is improving and becoming more interested. He has now sacrificed his hairs for Krishna. That is a good sign. Calcutta was in political turmoil. A group of communist terrorists, the Naxalites, had been rioting, murdering prominent businessmen, and threatening the lives of many others. Many wealthy Marwaris industrialists were leaving the city for Delhi and Bombay. Aside from the terrorists, Bengali college students were growing unruly. But the older people of West Bengal, comprising most of Prabhupada's visitors, were alarmed by the violence and unrest. The only shelter, Prabhupada told them, was Krishna. People are in very much perturbed condition. All of them are expecting me to do something for ameliorating the situation, but I am simply advising them to chant Hare Krishna because this transcendental sound is the only panacea for all material diseases. Prabhupada saw no need to fabricate a special program for the social problems of Calcutta. Chanting Hare Krishna was the only panacea for all material diseases. The question was how best to use these American disciples to give this panacea to the Indians. Prabhupada had his party of 10 devotees and he had asked his leaders in the West for 20 more within the month. He had ordered $60,000 worth of books and magazines from Dai Nippon, and his sannyasis were going daily into the streets to perform kirtan. The Sankirtan party was getting a good response. Shaven-headed Westerners wearing sikhas, Vaishnava tilaka, and saffron robes, playing kartals and mridanga, chanting Hare Krishna with the heart and soul, quoting Sanskrit verses from Bhagavad Gita, affirming Lord Krishna to be the supreme personality of Godhead. For the Bengalis, this was sensational, and hundreds would gather to watch. Prabhupada knew the great appeal his disciples would have. Everyone would want to see them. He therefore affectionately called them his dancing white elephants. These same devotees who had grown to love chanting Hare Krishna in the streets of San Francisco, Los Angeles, and New York were now going into an exhausting heat never encountered in America and chanting on Dalhousie Square for several hours daily. Crowds would press in closely, sometimes teasing, laughing, or scoffing, but more often looking on with deep amazement. Prabhupada's idea was that when Indians saw young Western people adopting principles of Krishna consciousness, the faith of the Indians in their own culture would increase. Prabhupada explained to his disciples how formerly, during the time of Maharaj Yudhishthir, India had been a Krishna conscious state. For the last 1,000 years, however, India had been under foreign subjugation, first under the Mughals and then under the British. As a result, the intelligentsia and to a lesser degree the masses of India had lost respect for their own culture. They were now pursuing the materialistic goals of the West and they saw this as more productive and more practical than religion, which was only sentimental. Westerners, living as renounced Vaishnavas, could, as Prabhupada was well aware, turn the heads and hearts of Indians and help them regain faith in their own lost culture. It was not a material tactic, however, but a spiritual strength. Prabhupada said that the devotees must be pure in their actions, this purity would be their force. The chanting in Dalhousie Square and along Chowrangi had gone on for about 10 days when Prabhupada decided to stop it. The street kirtan, although an excellent method of preaching, was not the most efficient method for India, he said. There were many professional kirtana groups in Bengal, and Prabhupada did not want his disciples to be seen like that as professional performers or beggars. He wanted them to preach in a way that would bring them closer to the more intelligent, respectable Indians, and he unfolded his new plan. He called it life membership. His disciples would invite Indian interested in supporting and associating with ISKCON to become members. A membership fee of 1111 rupees would entitle the members to many benefits such as copies of Srila Prabhupada's books and free accommodation in ISKCON centers around the world. Speaking one evening in a private home before a group of wealthy businessmen, Prabhupada initiated his life membership program. After lecturing, he invited his audience to become ISKCON life members, and several Calcutta merchants immediately signed. B.L. Jaju. I was really overwhelmed by the simplicity of Prabhupada's nature. He told me how he had been carrying on his regular business when his guru had told him that 400 years back Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had said that Hare Rama, Hare Krishna would be chanted all throughout the world. He said that that was the job given to him by his spiritual master and that he would have to go to America and do it. I found no snobbery in him. He was very simple, and he was telling, as if my brother was telling to me, simply how he went to USA, how he started, and how gradually he planned to have this Krishna consciousness throughout the world. Seeing his disciples who had changed their lives, I began to think, why not I? In my humble way, I should do something without worrying what other people are doing. I found that imperceptibly he was affecting my life. My wife and even my son were really surprised when they found that these white people, whom we thought could never turn to Krishna consciousness, had changed so much. So we thought we also must try to follow better the teaching of Gita. Whether at a life member's home, at a formal lecture before a large audience, or in his own room, Prabhupada continued speaking from Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam about Krishna and Krishna consciousness. Of this he never tired. A guest would ask a question and Prabhupada would begin his answer by having one of his disciples read a relevant verse from the Gita and then he would explain it. If the guest was unsubmissive and wanted to challenge, Prabhupada would argue. Sitting at his low desk, occasionally drinking water from his lota, Prabhupada would talk hour after hour. The temperature rose to 100 degrees, and as Prabhupada sat in his room preaching, he wore no shirt, only a simple top cloth which left his arms, shoulder, and part of his chest bare. Sometimes the devotees sitting with him would be sick or sleepy or otherwise inattentive, and sometimes they would excuse themselves returning hours later to find him still preaching. Guests also came and went, yet except for a nap after lunch, Prabhupada kept preaching, often throughout the day into the night. Never bored with his subject matter, he would speak as long as there was an interested hearer. His audience varied. Sometimes he would speak to a room of husbands and wives, all cultured and well dressed, and sometimes he would speak to one lone old man. Sometimes his audience listened quietly or argued, or even when appreciating, showed their misunderstanding. Sometimes a guest would ask him why he criticized Bengal's reputed saints and politicians, and he would explain on the basis of Bhagavad Gita that real sadhu always glorifies Krishna. Prabhupada often related his preaching to events of particular interest to his audience, such as Calcutta's political unrest or downfall of Vedic culture, yet his concern for local affairs was only the practical necessity of the moment, for he was beyond India. He was thinking of people, places, activities all around the world. In answering his letters, he would deeply ponder matters in England, Australia, Hawaii, or New Vrindavan. And beyond this, he would always be thinking of Krishna. He wanted to glorify Krishna throughout the world. India happened to be his present field. The devotees in India had the privilege of closely observing Prabhupada in his preaching. His superior tolerance and kindness both inspired them and, by contrast, exposed to them their own inadequacy. As newcomers to India, the devotees were still greatly involved with the practical affairs of living in Calcutta. Weather, disease, and culture shock distracted their minds from Krishna consciousness, but Prabhupada's presence, his preaching, and his example reminded them that reality was beyond the body. Sometimes the devotees criticized certain of Prabhupada's visitors. They met Indians who sat with Prabhupada and presented a facet of godlessness, but who later smoked cigarettes and showed other signs of low character. Once a group of devotees complained to Prabhupada about these hypocritical Indians, but Prabhupada told them the story of bee and the fly. The bee, he explained, always looks for honey and the fly for a nasty sore or infection. The devotee should be like the honeybee and see the good in others, not like the fly looking for the faults. Prabhupada's disciples discovered that the best way to learn to live in India was to follow exactly what Prabhupada did. When taking prasadam with him at someone's home, they would eat the same foods as he and in the same order. When he would finish, they would finish, and when he would wash his hands, they would wash. Life in India was strange, even bewildering, and Prabhupada's disciples did not have Prabhupada's vision of his mission in India, but they were following him like little ducks wherever he went. As the devotees came closer to Prabhupada and witnessed more of his unique qualities, they came to love him more than ever. Sitting in his room on a white cushion and leaning back on the white bolster, Prabhupada appeared golden hued and regal despite his simple surroundings. The devotees could see that he was unaffected by his surroundings, whether in Los Angeles, where he had lived comfortably amid opulence, or in Calcutta. He was at home in India, but he was not just another Indian, nor even just another Indian sadhu. He was unique, and he was theirs. From Prabhupada's first day in Calcutta, he had thought of going to Mayapur, the sacred birthplace of Lord Chaitanya. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, father of Śrīla Prabhupada, spiritual master and pioneer in spreading Lord Chaitanya's teachings beyond India, had longed for the day when Americans and Europeans would join with their Bengali brothers in Mayapur chanting the holy names. Prabhupada wanted to purchase land, establish a Mayapur center for his Western disciples, and fulfill the dream of his spiritual predecessors. He had written to one of his god brothers, I wish to go to Mayapur to pay my respects to our beloved spiritual master, His Divine Grace, Śrīla Prabhupada, as well as to complete the purchase of the land. So, if Jagmohan Prabhu will accompany us to finish this transaction, it will be very kind of him, and I hope you will kindly request him to accompany us. The followers of Lord Chaitanya accept Mayapur, 110 miles north of Calcutta, to be identical with Vrindavan. 5,000 years ago, Lord Krishna lived in Vrindavan performing his childhood pastimes, and 500 years ago, Lord Krishna appeared in Mayapur as Lord Chaitanya. For the Gaudiya Vaishnava, therefore, Mayapur and Vrindavan are the two most dear and sacred places on earth. What better place for ISKCON to have its world headquarters than in Mayapur? But despite various attempts over the past several years, Srila Prabhupada had still not acquired property there. He had gone to Mayapur with Achyutananda in 1967, seen a plot of land, and asked Achyutananda to try and get it. But Achyutananda and the Mohammedan owner had never reached an agreement. Some of the Prabhupada's godbrothers had temples and property in Mayapur, but they wouldn't help. Some even seemed to be working against him. When Prabhupada had written one of his godbrothers in Mayapur asking him to help Achyutananda secure land, the godbrother's secretary had replied that he was unable to do so. The secretary had remarked, one must be very fortunate to get land in Mayapur. Prabhupada criticized his godbrother's uncooperative spirit. He was becoming impatient. Why are we not able to get the land in Mayapur? He asked his disciples. This is dragging on for 300 years. Again, he wrote one of his godbrothers. Regarding propagating the name of Sri Mayapur as birthplace of Lord Chaitanya, it is going on regularly in our different literatures and books. If you kindly take the trouble of coming here conveniently, I can show you how we are giving publicity to the birth site of Lord Chaitanya. Perhaps you know that I begged from His Holiness Sripad Tirtha Maharaj a little piece of land at Mayapur for constructing a home for my Western disciples, but he refused the proposal. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur wanted that the American and European devotees would come to Mayapur, and the prophecy is now fulfilled. Unfortunately, they are loitering in the streets of Calcutta without having a suitable place at Mayapur. Do you think it is all right? Accompanied by a small party of men, Prabhupada took the train to Navadvip just across the Ganges from Mayapur. There, they were met by members of Devananda Mutt. Riding in rickshaws to Devananda Mutt, the devotees were charmed by the rural atmosphere of Navadvip. Everything was lush from the rainy season, and the devotees found their romantic expectations of India now being fulfilled as they proceeded along roads lined with tropical vegetation. As Devananda Mutt at the Devananda Mutt, Prabhupada and his disciples were given special prasadam and good accommodations. Then the rains returned. Day after day, the rains came, and the Ganges rose higher and higher until crossing the swift river into Mayapur became impossible. Since the rains were not likely to abate soon, Prabhupada decided to leave. He and his disciples boarded an early morning train to Calcutta. The tracks were flooded repeatedly. The train had to stop once for more than 8 hours. The heat and the crowds of the passengers constantly passing through the car made the wait torturous for the devotees. Prabhupada asked one of his disciples to take a rickshaw and try to arrange better transportation. Nothing was available. At last, the train continued toward Calcutta, only to stop at the next station, where all the passengers changed to another train. Finally, Prabhupada reached Calcutta and Mr. Das Gupta's home. Maybe Lord Chaitanya does not want us to establish our headquarters in Mayapur, Prabhupada said. The two purposes in his mind, establishing a place in Calcutta and purchasing land in Mayapur, he had not accomplished. Prabhupada continued holding the programs in people's homes and talking with guests in his room. One day, Mr. Dandaria visited Prabhupada and mentioned Bombay's upcoming Sadhu Samaj, a gathering of most important sadhus in India. It was to be held at Chowpatty Beach and promised to be a big affair. Mr. Dandaria requested Prabhupada to attend and Prabhupada accepted. Bombay, October 1970. Responding to Srila Prabhupada's request for more disciples to join him in India, a group of 20 American devotees traveled to Brussels and took an inexpensive flight aboard a propeller-driven craft to Bombay. At the airport, while the devotees were wondering where they should go, Mr. Kailas Saksaria, a wealthy Bombay businessman and nephew of Mr. Dandaria, approached them with a letter from Prabhupada. Mr. Saksaria had arranged for several cars and he escorted the devotees to his home in an affluent Bombay residential area on Marine Drive. He fed them and provided them with living quarters. 2 days later, a telegram arrived informing the devotees and their hosts that Prabhupada would be arriving the next day. Prabhupada arrived at Bombay airport and, after an enthusiastic reception, rode with Mr. Seksaria to his home. Marine Drive runs along the seashore, and the houses lining it belonged to the very rich. Mr. Seksaria's residence was 7 stories, and he offered Srila Prabhupada the first floor with its large rooms overlooking the Arabian Sea. Bombay, Prabhupada said, was India's most materialistic city. It was the nation's movie capital and the city where, more than in any other Indian city, the people wore Western dress. The gateway to India, it boosted the most industries, the most businesses, and the most billboards. It was a cosmopolitan melting point and melting pot of cultures and religions, but had none of the Naxalite terrorism of Calcutta or the heavy political atmosphere of New Delhi. Nor did it have the aristocratic families who worshipped Lord Chaitanya and his Sankirtan movement, but it had its own advantages for preaching, Prabhupada said. It was a city of wealth, with many pious citizens who were intelligent and quick to adopt a good idea. He predicted Bombay would be a favorable city for Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada's first Bombay preaching engagement was at a gathering of sadhus, a pandal in an open field just a few blocks from Mr. Saksaria's home. Prabhupada's disciples had also been invited and they arrived several hours before Prabhupada. The array of Indian sadhus sitting on stage in long rows startled the devotees. Some of the sadhus were bearded, some shaven headed, some with long matted hair and holding tridents, some covered with ashes, some adorned with beads and clay markings. The devotees were amazed and sorry, amazed, and many of the sadhus, on seeing the white-skinned Vaishnavas, were also amazed. When the devotees came on stage and began their kirtan, the audience responded by clapping in rhythm and chanting. Afterward, on the advice of Mr. Saksaria, the devotees took their kirtan out into the streets and many in the audience followed. That evening, the devotees returned to Pandal with Prabhupada. Prabhupada sat on a raised platform and his disciples sat at his feet. After having 3 of his disciples speak in English, Prabhupada spoke in Hindi while an audience of more than 500 listened silently. After his lecture, he came down from the platform and a crowd gathered around him, touching his feet, following him to his car. When Prabhupada heard from his disciples of their spontaneous kirtan through the streets of Bombay, he said they should go to the busiest bazaars and chant daily. So they did. Wherever large numbers of people gathered, the devotees would go and chant. They were strong, youthful, exuberant, and faithful, and they would chant in the streets for 3 or 4 hours each day. Although Prabhupada did not physically go into the streets chanting with his disciples, he was with them by his instructions and by his presence before they went out in the morning and when they returned in the evening. They were chanting because he had told them to. And they knew that chanting was the natural activity of the soul. Everyone should chant. The devotees knew that at the end of life they would go back home, back to Godhead. And better than that, at the end of the day they would go back to Marine Drive to Prabhupada, who would smile and encourage them. Radio stations and newspapers took note of the Western devotees chanting in the city. One article appeared in the October 10 edition of Times of India. A group of Americans, including women with babies in arms belonging to the International Society for Krishna Consciousness (ISKCON), has been moving around Bombay during the past few days chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, or Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, to accompaniments of cymbals, castanets, and drums, mridangams. Can the materialistic West, or at any rate a microscopic part of it, have turned at last to embrace the spiritualism of the East? I met several of the Kirtan chanting Americans who have come here to attend the 7th All India Conference at Bharat Sadhu Samaj, which begins here today, and was at once struck by their sincerity and utter surrender to the cult they have adopted. The the Vaishnavas of Mathura could not be so guileless, I thought, as this band of bhakti enthusiasts. Enthusiasts. The sand of Chowpatty beach was fine and clean. The audience numbered in thousands. Sadhus sat on stage, Prabhupada and his followers among them. It was twilight. The sky above the Arabian Sea was cloudy and a pleasant breeze was stirring. There had already been two lectures expounding the Mayavad philosophy, and now it was time for Prabhupada to speak, the last scheduled speaker of the evening. The audience was eager to hear him. His accomplishments in the West had caused great curiosity, especially now that he had arrived in Bombay and his devotees were chanting daily in public. Prabhupada's disciples, bored and exasperated by the preceding 2 hours of Hindi oratory, could scarcely wait any longer for Prabhupada to speak. But Prabhupada, instead of addressing the audience, turned to his disciples and said, "Begin chanting." As soon as the devotees began the kirtan, little Saraswati stood and began to dance. Following her, the other devotees rose and began to dance. As the kirtan came alive with mridanga and kartal, the dancing and the chanting of the devotees seemed to disturb some of the sadhus on stage, who rose one by one and left. The audience, however, responded enthusiastically, many of them standing and clapping. After 5 minutes of ecstatic kirtan, the devotees spontaneously jumped down onto the sand and headed towards the audience. Thousands in crowd rose to their feet and began to move along with the devotees in a dance backward and forward. Indians began crying in uncontrolled happiness, overwhelmed by the genuine Krishna bhakti of these foreigners. Never before had such a thing happened. Policemen and press reporters joined in the chanting and dancing. Chopati beach was in an uproar of Hare Krishna Kirtan as Prabhupada and his disciples showed the potency of Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement. After about 10 minutes, the kirtan ended, though a tumultuous unrest pervaded the talkative crowd. 15 minutes elapsed before all the people returned to their seats and the program could continue. The devotees had left the stage and taken their seats on the ground level, leaving Prabhupada alone on stage. Prabhupada's voice echoed over the public address system. Ladies and gentlemen, I was requested to speak in Hindi, but I am not very much accustomed to speak in Hindi. Therefore, the authorities in this meeting have allowed me to speak in in English. I hope you will follow me because it is Bombay and most people will be speaking English. The problem is, as this evening speaker, His Holiness Swami Akhandananda Ji, Akhandananda Ji spoke to you, how we can make everyone accustomed to take up good habits, sadachar. I think in this age, Kali Yuga, there are many faults. Prabhupada went on to explain the power of Lord Chaitanya's movement to clean the hearts of everyone. He referred to the two great rogues whom Lord Chaitanya has delivered, Jagai and Madai. Now we are saving wholesale Jagai and Madais. Jagais and Madais. Therefore, if we want peace, if we want to be situated on the Sadachar platform, then we must spread the Harinam Mahamantra all over the world. And it has been practically proven. The American and European Vaishnavas who have come here, who have chanted Hare Krishna mantra, they were cow flesh eaters, they were drunkards, they were illicit sex mongers, they were all kinds of gamblers. But having taken to this Krishna consciousness movement, they have given up everything abominable. Sadachar has come automatically. They are no more meat eaters, they are no more gamblers, they are no more illicit sex mongers, they are no more intoxicators. They do not even take tea, they do not even take coffee, they do not even smoke, which I think is very rare to be found in India. But they have given up. Why? Because they have taken to this Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada ended his talk after about 5 minutes. I do not feel that I have to say very much. You can see what is the result of Krishna consciousness. It is not something artificial, it is there in everyone. I have not done anything magical, but this Krishna consciousness is present in all of us. We simply have to revive it. The audience responded with cheers and a great round of applause. Prabhupada, with his greater force and eloquence than the long-winded Mayavadis, had shown the essence of spiritual life, ecstatic chanting of the holy names, and he offered the living testimony of his American disciples. For the next week, Prabhupada and his disciples were the talk of Bombay, and they began receiving many invitations to speak and perform kirtan throughout the city. The Times weekly's coverage of the Sadhu Samaj spotlighted the memorable presence of Srila Prabhupada and his disciples. A group of 20 Americans, members of Hare Krishna delegation, took over the dais. The air was filled with beating of mridanga, the clash of cymbals, and the music of the Mahamantra. Swaying from side to side, their tufts of hair tossing in the breeze, they chanted Hare Krishna. On graying on gray sorry One graying reporter, whom I had always regarded as a practical, unsentimental person, said to me in an emotional, choked voice, "Do you realize what is happening? Very soon Hinduism is going to sweep the West. The Hare Krishna movement will compensate for all our loss at the hands of padres through the centuries." About 25 newsmen came to a press conference on the fifth floor of Mr. Sexaria's residence. Prabhupada sat with his disciples on a large mattress and answered questions, and the devotees showed a film of San Francisco Rath Yatra. The reporters asked about New Vrindavan. They questioned the devotees. Why had they become sadhus? Why had they left their country? The next day, the press was full of stories of Prabhupada and his movement. The Times of India picked up on an article on a particular angle. U.S. millionaire's son seeks solace in Krishna society. The article told of Giriraj renouncing his father's wealth to join Prabhupada's movement. One newspaper quoted Giriraj, "My father works hard and earns fabulous money. He always fights with my mother. My sisters ran away from the house. Thus, in spite of material comforts, nobody is happy." Quoting Shama Sundara, "My father is very rich, but he has to take sleeping tablets every night." And there were other articles. Soon, letters appeared in the letters column of Times of India. As far as my knowledge goes, these foreign Hindus of the Hare Krishna movement cannot be equal to the native original Brahmanas and Hindus. They will have to be relegated to the lower caste. It is significant to see one of the newly converted sadhus, Sri Gopal Das, formerly Charles Poland of Chicago, stated that he was a construction worker formerly. Doing Sudra's work, it would thus become necessary to allot the three lower castes to these foreign converts according to their profession. Another letter stated, "The Hare Krishna movement is just a sporadic fad of sentimentalists." Prabhupada said these letters should be answered, and he personally outlined replies, delegating their writing to specific disciples. Within a few days, Prabhupada's replies appeared in the press. In India, even amongst the Brahmanas in different provinces, there is no social intercourse. So, if they are socially accepted or not doesn't matter. For example, amongst the qualified legal practitioners in different provinces, there may not be social intercourse, but that does not mean they are not qualified lawyers. This is a cultural movement, and if the whole world accepts this cult, even though Indian Brahmanas do not accept it, will do no harm at all. We are not striving for social or political unity, but if Krishna consciousness is accepted, there will be automatical there will automatically be political, social, and religious unity. The fact that one of our boys was a construction worker does not mean that he belongs to the Shudra community. The Shudra community is the less intelligent class or illiterate class who have no information of the value of life. In America, even the highest cultured and educated person can go to work as an ordinary construction worker because they accept the dignity of labor. So, although a boy was working as a construction worker, in America he is not a Shudra. But even if he is accepted as a Shudra, Lord Krishna said that anyone who comes to him is eligible to be elevated to the highest position of going back to home, back to Godhead. In a letter signed by Giriraj, Prabhupada refuted the charge that his movement was a sporadic fad of sentimentalists. How can our movement be sporadic when the science was taught in the Gita 5000 years ago and instructed to the sun god millions of years before that? How can it be called sporadic when our activity is Sanatan Dharma, the eternal occupation of the living entity? Would Fedists give up all meat eating, intoxicants, illicit sex, and gambling for over 5 years now? Would Ferris give up friends, families, and money and get up at 4 a.m. daily, ready to go to any country in the world and preach in any conditions immediately on the request of their spiritual master? Prabhupada saw all news coverage of Krishna consciousness movement as an aid to propagating Krishna consciousness. Even by criticizing the Krishna consciousness movement, he said the papers were broadcasting the holy name of Krishna, and Krishna's name was absolute. Mr. Seksaria held a special program for many important dignitaries of Bombay. Although he had expected no more than 200 persons, many more came. They were Bombay's elite, the women dressed in expensive silk saris and wearing gold and jewels, and the men in silk Nehru collared suits or white starched dhotis and kurtas. Prabhupada held kirtan with his disciples and then he spoke briefly and gravely. You are all very intelligent persons, he said. You are all very learned and educated. You are all very great persons. I beg you, I take the straw of the street between my teeth and I beg you, just chant Hare Krishna. Please chant Hare Krishna. Can someone mute? After his talk, Prabhupada left and the devotees showed slides of the Hare Krishna movement's activities around the world. They also made their first public live membership appeal, and Mr. G.D. Somani, one of the India's leading industrialists, as well as Mr. Seksaria, signed on as members. Although Prabhupada was happy to see the number of ISKCON's life members increasing, that his shipment of books from Dai Nippon had not yet arrived made him anxious. The devotees were promising life members books, but where were these books? Every day the problem became more and more pronounced. Prabhupada learned of a Calcutta port strike. His books had apparently arrived, but the ship unable to unload cargo in Calcutta had left port. He worried that the ship would un, uh, unload the books in some other Indian port. The exact whereabouts and the condition of the books, however, remain unknown. Prabhupada was greatly concerned. He decided to send a competent disciple, Tamal Krishna, to Calcutta to try and retrieve the books. Meanwhile, he would continue preaching depending on Krishna. Amritsar, October 21st, 1970. Accompanied by a group of disciples, 7 men and 2 women, Prabhupada began the 2-day train ride from Bombay to Amritsar. Years ago, Prabhupada had traveled as a preacher in India alone, riding the trains to Jhansi, Delhi, Kanpur, Calcutta, and Bombay to publish Back to Godhead, and solicit support. After only 5 years in the West, he now had a great advantage of sincere disciples, and now the Indians were taking notice. He had stationed Achyutananda Swami, Jayapatak Swami, Hamsaduta, and others in Calcutta. Tamal Krishna Shamananda and others in Bombay. His disciples would make life members and try to establish permanent ISKCON centers in 2 of India's major cities. His Krishna consciousness movement was beginning in India, and he wanted to travel with his disciples wherever there was an opportunity to preach, just as he had worked in America. Never settling comfortably in one place, but always traveling, speaking about Krishna, meeting new people, and offering them devotional service. So he would also work in India. The train arrived at Kurukshetra station. Near here, said Prabhupada, Lord Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita 5000 years ago. They say it does not exist, a mythological place. It is a symbol of the field of body and the senses, they say. It is an allegorical place. But here we are at the station. As he spoke, the sun was setting and a bright orange sky shone over the flat land. How can they say Kurukshetra is not a real place? He continued. Here it is before us, and it has been a historical place for a long, long time. When the train arrived at Amritsar station, members of Vedanta Sammelan committee received Prabhupada and escorted him and his disciples to a park on the outskirts of the city. They showed him the large pandal the Niketan ashram had erected for Vedanta Sammelan and assigned him and his disciples their quarters. Three small rooms. Prabhupada took one room, the two women the second room, and four of the men crowded into the third, leaving three men to sleep outdoor on cots. The first night in the northern climate was cold. Available bedding was meager, and none of the devotees had brought warm clothing. At 4 the next morning, the devotees congregated in Srila Prabhupada's room for Mangalarti and Kirtan before the deities of Radha and Krishna, the same deities who had been traveling with Prabhupada for the past 1.5 years. Despite the austere conditions, the devotees felt fortunate to have such intimate contact with Prabhupada and Radha Krishna. Prabhupada played mridanga, leading the chanting of prayers to the spiritual master. Afterward, he had the pujari distribute to each devotee a bit of fruit and sweetmeats that had just been offered to the deities. It was still before sunrise and the room was chilly as devotees sat huddled beneath a naked bulb. Prabhupada had them read aloud from Srimad Bhagavatam. That same morning, Prabhupada attended the Vedanta Sammelan. There were thousands of people in the audience, and since most of them did not understand English, Prabhupada spoke in Hindi. His presentation pleased everyone, and the committee members honored him by making him president of Vedanta Sammelan. Although the program was scheduled only for several hours in the morning and evening, Prabhupada did not limit his preaching to these times. He preached every hour of the day. While he sat in his room, a constant stream of guests came to him, hundreds of pious Hindus seeking his blessings. Recognizing this vestige of Vedic culture, he pointed it out to his disciples. Just see, he said, how they treat a saintly person. Prabhupada also began receiving the usual flood of invitations to visit the homes of Hindu families. He accepted as many invitations as possible, more than possible, it seemed to his disciples. Prabhupada moved quickly. When the cars were ready, he would come out of his room and go, leaving behind anyone who wasn't ready. After each engagement, he would get into his car and go directly to the next. Latecomers would sometimes find he had already left. They would then jump into bicycle rickshaws and try to catch him. A wrong direction or a missed turn might make them miss the next engagement. And when at last they would catch up, they would find Prabhupada coolly, gravely in the midst of a lecture in Bhagavad Gita or laughing and taking prasadam with his host. Every day brought at least a half dozen engagements. Come to our temple for darshan, come to our house for prasadam, and whenever Prabhupada would return to his ashram, he would find a long line of guests waiting to spend a few moments in with him. None of the devotees could match Prabhupada's pace and enthusiasm. His energy seemed never to wane, for his disciples being invited incessantly to take a full meal at half a dozen homes in one day was too much. They tended to overeat, and some of them got sick. But Prabhupada knew how to handle the situation expertly. He would fully satisfy each host, speak about Krishna consciousness, hold kirtan, take a little prasadam, and move on. One evening, in response to an invitation, Prabhupada visited to the home of Baladeva Indra Singh, a descendant of one of the ancient Punjab's ruling families. Although nearing 60, Mr. Singh was still a robust Punjabi Kshatriya, handsome, tall, and sporting a big black moustache. He showed Prabhupada and his disciples through his elegant home with its large portraits of ancestors, uniformed Kshatriyas with their helmets and swords. In the trophy room, which had many animal skins and stuffed heads mounted on the wall, Mr. Singh brought Prabhupada and his disciples before his prize trophy, a large tiger's head. Prabhupada approached closely. You have killed this? He asked. Yes, Mr. Singh replied, and he described the details of the hunt. The man eater had killed many people in a nearby village, Mr. Singh explained. So I went and shot it. Prabhupada's eye widened and he turned to his disciples. Oh, very nice. Later, Prabhupada sat in a chair and Mr. Singh sat before him on the floor. He said something was troubling him. An astrologer had told him that in a previous lifetime Thousands of years ago, he had fought in the battle of Kurukshetra, but on the side against Krishna. That's not possible, Prabhupada said. Everyone present at the battlefield of Kurukshetra was liberated. If you had actually been at the battle of Kurukshetra, you would not still be within this material world. Mr. Singh wasn't certain whether to feel relieved or disappointed, but Prabhupada assured him, "That's all right, don't worry. Now you are a devotee of Krishna." When Prabhupada asked Mr. Singh to become a life member of ISKCON, he agreed immediately. He confessed that when he had first invited Prabhupada and his disciples, he had actually been skeptical, but after being with Srila Prabhupada for a few minutes, he said all his doubts and suspicions have vanished. He would be happy to become ISKCON's first life member in Amritsar. Although the devotees requested Prabhupada to take fewer engagements, he would not slow down. It was his disciples, he said, who were finding the pace difficult. One night after the eighth and final engagement of the day, Prabhupada returned to his room just at little before midnight. For the devotees, the day had been exhausting and they were eager to get to bed as soon as possible. Noticing Prabhupada's light still on, one of them went to his window. Prabhupada was sitting at his desk, leaning back against the wall, listening to a tape recording of one of the talks he had given that day. One afternoon, Prabhupada and his disciples went to see the famous Golden Temple of the Sikhs. A guide took them around and answered Prabhupada's questions. Sikh businessmen, the guide explained, maintained the temple and its expenses. The Sikhs pride uh, themselves themselves in the assertion that no one in Amritsar goes hungry, and they daily feed dal and chapati to 10,000 people. This interested Prabhupada, and he observed their massive operation. He watched the group of men rolling chapatis, flipping them deftly through the air onto a giant griddle, while other men using long pedals turned the chapatis, held them briefly over the hot coals, and then placed them in stalks. This is how to distribute prasadam, Prabhupada said. Prabhupada signed the guest book A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. Under religion, he wrote Krishnite, and under comments, he wrote very spiritual. Prabhupada and his disciples visited Ramatirtha Sarovar, the lake where in a bygone age the great sage Valmiki had his ashram. The terrain surrounding Ramatirtha Sarovar was dry and rocky and vegetation was sparse. As they stopped at the beautiful bathing ghat, its steps leading down into the lake, the devotees were in a jubilant mood, happy to be on a trip with their transcendental father and teacher. The peaceful lake and the beautiful ghat seemed an ideal setting for being with Prabhupada. Mhm. What should I do? Shall I continue or let's stop here? I think it would take maybe 15 minutes. Shall I continue or shall I stop here?
Fine for me to go.
Fine to go?
Yes, fine.
Let's complete. Okay. Thank you. I hope others also are fine. The devotees who knew little of Lord Ram listened intently as Prabhupada began to tell some of the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his incarnation of Lord Ramachandra. During the last days of his earthly pastimes, Prabhupada said, Rama banished Sita, his wife and eternal consort. Pregnant and alone, Sita sought shelter at ashram of Valmiki, where she soon gave birth to a son, Lava. Valmiki created another son for Sita from straw and named him Kusha. When Sita learned that Rama was sending a challenge horse throughout the world, she instructed her. When Rama learned that, when Sita learned, I'll repeat. When Sita learned that Ram was sending a challenge horse throughout the world, she instructed her sons to catch the horse. In this way, she concluded they would capture their father and bring him before her. Unfortunately, while the boys were away on their mission, they learned that Lord Ramchandra had departed from the world. Grief stricken, they returned to Valmiki. To mitigate the boys' anguish of separation, Valmiki sang to them Ramayana, the transcendental narrative of Lord Ram's activities. One day, as Sita was out walking, the ground opened before her and she returned into the earth from which she had appeared. These events, Prabhupada explained as he stood with his followers by Ramtirtha Sarovar, had happened no less than 800,000 years ago. For the devotees, it was as if Prabhupada had opened a new door to the spiritual world. The organizers of Vedanta Sammelan repeatedly asked Prabhupada and his party to play a larger part in Pandal program. The scheduled discourses were mostly on Mayavad philosophy. God is impersonal, all religious paths are equal and lead to the Supreme One, all is one, we are all God. Such dry speculations could not hold the public attention, and Sammelan organizers daily requested the devotees to hold Kirtan in the Pandal. But with so much other preaching, Prabhupada preferred holding programs of his own in private homes around the city. A devotee asked Prabhupada about a Mayavad slogan. He said, Tat Tvam Asi, with English translation underneath, you are that too. This was a favorite saying of impersonalists who imagine that the living entity is God, Prabhupada said. He explained elaborately the distinction between God and the living entity and told how God, when he appears, displays certain unmistakable characteristics that identify him as the supreme personality of Godhead. These yogis will just talk and talk Vedanta, Prabhupada said. It is simply mental speculation and they never come to any conclusion. They will go on speculating for years and lifetimes, but we will realize God simply by eating. And from the plate of prasadam before him, he took a sweet and popped it into his mouth. In the midst of his activities in Amritsar, Prabhupada continued to think of his spiritual children in various places throughout the world and he regularly wrote them. To the devotees in Calcutta, he wrote, I am very much anxious to hear what you are doing there and if you have made any life members by this time. He asked them to register ISKCON with the government and try to establish a permanent center there. To his disciples in Bombay, he wrote, I am very anxious to know your situation, whether you have removed to uh, whether you whether you have removed to the Rama temple or where you are stationed now. To Karandhara in Los Angeles, he wrote, I hope everything is going on well with you in our Los Angeles World Headquarters. People send me a report of your general activities and also your governing body commission activities. Please offer my blessings to all the members of our temples. How is the deity worship being carried on? Replying to Upendra in Fiji Islands. Regarding worship of demigods, the whole Hindu society is absorbed in this business. So unless our preaching work is very vigorous, it is very difficult to stop them. And to Bhavananda in New York, please conduct the Sankirtan program regularly, and that will give me great pleasure. Regarding our new temple in Brooklyn, Krishna has given you very good chance to serve him. October 30, 1970. After 10 days in Amritsar, Prabhupada was on the train heading back to Bombay. He rode in a small first-class compartment with Gurudas, while the rest of his disciples rode in another part of the train. Prabhupada's car, being close to the locomotive, caught soot from the engine's smoke stack until he was soon flecked from head to foot with small black particles. Yamuna. We were traveling between Amritsar and Delhi, and I decided to go see how Srila Prabhupada was doing, if there was anything he wanted, because sometimes when the train stopped, he would ask for a devotee to purchase fresh fruit and other things from the vendors on the train platform. So Kaushalya and I made our way through several cars to Prabhupada's first class compartment. He was lying back on several pillows with one knee up, looking like a monarch. He had a beautiful smile on his face. We paid our obeisances, and Srila Prabhupada looked at us with a twinkle in his eye. Is there anything hot to eat? He asked. What do you mean? I said. Do you know me? Do you want me to get your lunch, Srila Prabhupada? No, he said. Not that. Some rice, some hot rice. I said. What do you mean, Srila Prabhupada, from the train? He said. Well, no. If you can, make me some hot rice. I said I would. I had no idea how I was going to prepare hot rice for Srila Prabhupada, but Kausalya and I found our way to the kitchen. Nobody was there. Only two men dressed in black turmeric stained shorts standing over the stove smoking cigarettes. I didn't know how to speak Hindi, but I said the best I could. My Guru Maharaj wants some chawal, some hot rice. The men laughed at us as if we were crazy, and so I thought we had better find someone who would give us permission. But when we found the manager of the restaurant, he said, "No, impossible, you can't cook in the kitchen." I said, "I'm sorry, this is for my Guru Maharaj. There is no question of choice. I have said to him that I will fix rice and I have to fulfill this." But again, he said, "No, it is impossible." I went and found the conductor of the train and explained the situation to him. "If I can't do this for my spiritual master," I said, "then I might as well jump off the train." The conductor took very seriously and said, of course, you can fix whatever you like in the kitchen." So he brought us back to the kitchen and told the head of the kitchen as well as the head of the restaurant that he was giving us permission. The coal stove was gigantic and I was completely unfamiliar with it. All sorts of aluminum pots and dishes were hanging around the kitchen. We cleaned out one of the pots as best we could, boiled the water, and put in the chawal. We prepared a gigantic platter of very hot rice with butter, fresh lemon, salt, pepper, and carried it through the train to Prabhupada's compartment. "Here's your rice, Srila Prabhupada," I said as we entered, and his eyes lit up and opened wide. He gave a huge grin. "Oh, my goddesses of fortune have come," he said. "They have brought me my rice. Thank you very much. This is just what I wanted." He ate so much from this huge plate. He took a little kachori and puri with it and a little pickle. He was very pleased. That night the train pulled into New Delhi station with its scurrying crowds of passengers, hawking vendors, refreshment counters, newsstands, beggars, and coolies in their dingy red uh, jackets. The stopover would be 20 minutes. Suddenly, a man appeared in Prabhupada's compartment identifying himself as D.D. Gupta. Although Prabhupada had not met him before, they had corresponded. He was a Delhi man, not especially influential or wealthy, but he wanted to help. For offering Prabhupada a box of sweets, he invited him to stay in Delhi. Prabhupada, however, already had other plans and had even wired ahead to notify the devotees in Bombay of his arrival. Prabhupada looked over at Gurudas, who was feeling very happy and especially blessed to have this intimate contact with his spiritual master. 12 hours they had spent in same compartment, eating together, talking together. Just minutes before, Prabhupada had been stressing the importance of farming and explaining the scarcity of food was due to mismanagement, not to lack of rain or arable land. Gurudas was happy and he was looking forward to the next leg of the journey with Prabhupada, anticipating the scenery and his return to Bombay. "This man is inviting us," Prabhupada said. "Get down and see what you can do." Get down? There was hardly time to ask questions or discuss what to do in Delhi. The train would be leaving immediately. Gurudas said he would stay, but he would need help. He and Prabhupada agreed on a team. Yamuna, Gurudas' wife, Giriraj, Durlabha, Bruce, and Gopal. Gurudas ran to tell his wife and the brahmacharis the news. The devotees had little trouble picking up their light bags and getting off the train, but they felt sad to be leaving Srila Prabhupada. As the train pulled away, they offered obeisances outside Prabhupada's window and waved to him, praying for his mercy. This was an austerity, perhaps a tiny drop of what Prabhupada had gone through when he had first arrived in America. Bombay, November 1970. For the next month, Prabhupada and his disciples stayed at Manohar Lal Agarwal's Sita Ram temple in Chembur. Actually, it was Mr. Agarwal's residence, but since he maintained the worship of Sita Ram deities, he called his home Ram Sharanam under the shelter of Lord Ram. Prabhupada occupied one room and his disciples two other rooms with access to a kitchen and bath. The Sita Ram temple and suburban neighborhood provided a peaceful atmosphere, and Prabhupada returned to concentrated work on Srimad Bhagavatam, corresponding with ISKCON centers around the world and looking after the small group of disciples who were with him. He had great hope Krishna would provide a way for ISKCON to become well established in India. We are just now receiving great publicity, and it is reported that Bombay has now got its atmosphere filled with Krishna consciousness. It is a fact, and the important members of Bombay community are appreciating our movement. For the present, I am more prominent than all Swamis. People are appreciating. What are these Swamis? They cannot go outside. There is a Bengali saying that a jackal is king in a small forest. The story is that a jackal became king in the forest by fooling the other animals for some time, but he remained always a jackal and his ruse was at last exposed. Although Mr. Agarwal was honored that Prabhupada had accepted his invitation and was now living as his guest, Prabhupada knew that the situation would ultimately prove inconvenient for everyone involved. To open one's home to a dozen guests and feed them daily was a strain, even for a wealthy man, and for the devotees to live in those tiny quarters under the already trying conditions of irregular hours, frequent sickness, and tropical heat was not easy. The solution, of course, was for the devotees to get their own places. An ISKCON center in Bombay. As a sannyasi, Prabhupada was prepared to stay anywhere, moving as often as necessary, accepting alms. He had lived that way for years before going to America, but now he had 20 spiritual children to support in India and more on the way. They were not mature. He wanted them near him so that they could observe how he did things and imbibe the spirit of preaching in India. When a Hindu organization in downtown Bombay requested a few devotees to attend a 3-day program, Prabhupada approved. But when the program was over and leaders of the organization invited the devotees to stay on indefinitely, Prabhupada said, "No, they will simply eat and sleep. Better for them to stay with him at crowded Ram Sharanam." Mrs. Sumati Morarji, the wealthy director of Scindia Steamship Lines, had financed the printing of third volume of Prabhupada's Srimad Bhagavatam in 1964, and in 65 she had provided him free passage to America. Now she invited Prabhupada to speak at Scindia House near Juhu Beach. Seated on stage, Prabhupada and Sumati Morarji reminisced, celebrating Prabhupada's success. "I did not think you would come back alive," Mrs. Morarji said, "but I am so much pleased to see you." No longer was Prabhupada the poor sadhu Mrs. Morarji had met 6 years ago. He was a success, and Sumati Morarji and her staff and friends were happy to hear about the Krishna consciousness movement in the West. Before Prabhupada's lecture, Tamal Krishna formally introduced him to the audience. Srila Prabhupada left for the West 5 years ago from this city. He had almost no money. He went to New York, where he chanted Hare Krishna in a park underneath a tree. Soon he opened a temple, where he continued his chanting and held classes on Vedic philosophy. Many people came, and gradually he opened new centers: San Francisco, Montreal, Boston, and so on. Now he has many devotees, over 40 temples. In each temple, there is a full scale program of Sankirtan, deity worship, and prasadam distribution. India has sent many ambassadors and ministers to the West, but none of them can say that they made the Americans give up eating meat, fishes, and eggs, eating eating meat, fish, and eggs, and got them to chant Hare Krishna. Everyone is indebted to Srila Prabhupada because he came to relieve the suffering of all the fallen souls. Prabhupada sang 3 verses from Brahma Samhita and invited the audience to join in the chorus, Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. After speaking for half an hour, he accepted prasadam with Sumati Murarji and honored guests and dignitaries. He met Dr. C. Bali and his wife, the famous dancer and movie actress Vaijayanti Mala. He spoke only briefly with them, and they became life members of ISKCON. Vaijayanti Mala. Swami Prabhupada made his preaching so simple that even a lay person would understand what our great philosophy and our great teachings meant. Not only was he propagating the great culture of our Lord Krishna, but he was making the people of other parts of the world really understand its meaning and its significance. By his simple and yet very great teachings of uh, but and yet very great teachings of Krishna, he took this message so far and so wide that it's really a marvel that a person single-handedly could do so much. He not only preached and just talked about whole thing, but he also established so many centers in so many parts of the world. This is really amazing that he could do it in spite of all difficulties. But his perseverance and his persistence, I think, kept him on. The public sensation of Prabhupada's disciples chanting in the streets of Bombay and at the Sadhu Samaj had died now. The regular news coverage had stopped. Still, Prabhupada was sought after many important people in Bombay. His accomplishments after 5 years in America commanded the esteem and attention of intelligent Indians, and daily he received respectable visitors who accepted him as the authority on Krishna consciousness. The Indians regarded Prabhupada as unique. Even in a culture where Swami and holy men are commonly treated with respect, he was regarded as special. His visitors would beg him to come to their homes and sanctify them. And this was also in line with Prabhupada's desire. He wanted to engage the Indians in chanting Hare Krishna, hearing the philosophy of Bhagavad Gita, and honoring Lord's Prasadam. He wanted them to appreciate the purity of Krishna consciousness movement, enlist as life members of ISKCON, and help him establish a large center in Bombay. In preaching to Indians, Prabhupada would often urge them to return to their all but forgotten spiritual culture. Our culture is Krishna consciousness, he said before a group of Bombay citizens. But we are forgetting and becoming too materially absorbed. Lord Rishabdev says that this is not good because, according to law of karma, you will have to take another birth, another body. But you don't have to give up your hard struggle for material life. Arjuna was not advised to do this. He remained in his position and executed Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada concluded, I am begging. I have 42 temples in the West, and each one there are 50 to 100 disciples. Thousands of books have to be printed. Please help me with this movement. Manohar Lal Agarwal, Prabhupada's host at Ramcharan, would often sit with him for hours inquiring about spiritual life. Mr. Agarwal was particularly interested in hearing of Prabhupada's work in America. How had he transformed so many Christians into Ram Bhaktas? Had he been all alone or had there been helpers? How did he dress in America? How was his approach? Prabhupada recounted his early preaching on the lower east side of New York, and he explained how everything had happened by Krishna's desire. Mr. Agarwal doubted whether Westerners would be able to stay with Krishna consciousness for very long. Now, in the radiance of your company, he said, as long as you are here bodily and physically, they may continue to absorb all these restrictions. But when your physical influence will not be there one day, when you will have to leave this world, then all these people that have come in contact with you, will they go bad? No, Prabhupada said firmly. Your claim is very tall, replied Mr. Agarwal. Can you tell me what is the basic foundation of your claim? Prabhupada reminded him that all his disciples had been initiated into the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra, and that according to the Vedic scriptures, the constant chanting of the Lord's holy name will save even the most fallen souls and protect them from falling again. Even after his passing away, Prabhupada predicted his disciples would not fall victim to Maya as long as they continued their prescribed chanting. One day, Mr. Agarwal asked how long Prabhupada and his disciples were planning to stay. Prabhupada said that he was very happy staying where he was, but would try to find a new place immediately. Mr. Agarwal insisted that he had no intention of asking Prabhupada to leave. His home belonged to Prabhupada, not to himself. He begged him to kindly continue to stay. Prabhupada said this reminded him of an incident from Chaitanya Charitamrita, and he told a story about Haridas Thakur, the great devotee of Lord Chaitanya. Haridas Thakur used to live alone in a cave where he chanted Hare Krishna day and night. Many pilgrims would visit him, but when they learned that a python was also living within the cave, they became afraid. Although Haridas Thakur was satisfied with his cave, he didn't want to inconvenience his visitors. So he said he would leave the cave that very day and not return again. Yet, even as he spoke, the huge python came winding out from the back of the cave into the presence of all. Passing near Haridas Thakur, the snake bowed his head to the ground and slithered away. The super soul within the heart of the python had impelled him to leave the cave so that Haridas Thakur would remain. Prabhupada laughed as he told the story. Agarwalji, he said, you have said the same thing. You have said that you will go away and that we all stay. Sorry, that we will stay. But no, no, we will go. We will go. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Yeah. Sometimes we have to run to reach the end. Still, it takes some time. But yeah, it's nectar. Yeah, this nectar can go on and on for hours. It's all about our father, Srila Prabhupada, and his pastimes. Thank you. Anyone want to add anything? Satish Prabhu, this is how we do every Friday.
Yes, Prabhu. It was very nice, especially understanding the kind of personality or character Srila Prabhupada had was very nice, and you beautifully read it out. So thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. So anyone, any observations that touched your heart, that inspired you?
So a couple of things from my end is like at this age he never gave up on things. In fact, things failed in Calcutta, in Mayapur, but he was, he took things positively. He went to Mumbai and he wanted to establish it there. And his
Yeah.
view on caste systems and the energy and pace with which he works really motivates. And I think all of us should contribute more towards this movement that was started, Prabhuji. So thankfully we have Gurujis like you through whom we can follow and contribute little towards this movement. Hare Krishna.
Yeah. No, that's very nicely said about. I mean, at my workplace also, I learned something which we can apply also in our spiritual endeavor. That usually when we are working, we can work initially, right? So this is approach. This is a technique that if we are quite focused only on one thing, we don't know what can be the outcome. Yeah, in the end, we may think, okay, it may work or may not work until we see the fruit. It could be. So the approach is like we do 10 things. Yeah, we try, not do. We try 10 things. Out of those 10 things, there will be some things which are promising, which appears to be, yeah, we can already start seeing that the flowers are coming, so the fruits will also come. So then give it more attention. Yeah, some may not come. Yeah, some seeds, just like if we put some seeds in the soil, some may come, some may not come. The thing that will come, we make best of it. Yeah. So similarly, Prabhupada, of course, it's tremendous. Yeah, I mean, we are not what we can in the spirit of following, not imitating here is that we should also very actively look up. Yeah, uh, multiple things. Yeah, keep trying. And giving energy. When I was doing a case study, I was doing a research on finding a very, very suitable tool. Then, what I used to do is not that, okay, let me take one, try it out, how it works, and let me try one more, how it works. No, invest time in all of them, see which one is better and what is the best thing, and then we keep on going. Yeah, here also with Prabhupada, I see that, yeah, if it's not Mayapur, yeah, the time will come, yeah, we know the time really came. It's not that okay, the story of Mayapur ended there, huh? But the attention that he gave was where people wanted his attention more. So this is also very nice that we, in our preaching, yeah, all this whole chapter is telling about preaching only. In whatever circumstance it is, yeah, we take up to this and go on with. So some may look into these outreach approaches. That is one
Absolutely.
way. And then there are not just outreach, there are also helping each other within the group. That is next one. Yeah. So yeah, just like we know in every country there is external affairs and internal affairs ministers. So the internal affairs is making sure that whatever the needs of the internal, yeah, so the are catered, and what is external affairs is doing is also doing the same thing at another area, because the world is not just only one country. So similarly, what we do, for example, if this is the Pure Bliss Times, yeah, there are some things which we can offer to the public who have not yet joined, and there are something which we can do within the community, within the group, that we are doing, how to serve each other, how to benefit from each other's association. So in that way, there are multiple projects one can take up and ensure that we grow internally and externally. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, thank you. Yeah. Anyone else? Rishabh Dev, your name came and you are present.
Hare Krishna, bro. I'm as good as not present. You can simply ignore.
Yeah, that is transcendence. Yeah. So
Thank you so much, bro, for a wonderful lecture.
no lecture. Yeah, we are just benefiting from the blessings of His Holiness Satsvarupa Goswami Maharaj. Yeah, so nicely, so very detailed, as if like I mean, while speaking, I am experiencing great bliss, and yeah, you guys just have to sit back and just hear, and it's a nice storytelling about our father, hmm, hearing the glories of him, how he achieved. Wonderful. Yeah.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yes,
Yeah, this
Prabhu.
question also came to my mind that how did he, how did Maharaj write like this? I mean, it seems like everything was happening in front of his eyes. Huh?
Yeah. In the preface we see like how he has gathered all this and how he has put it. And I remember His Holiness Kadamkaran Maharaj says that he is a perfect writer. Yeah, even today he is writing. Yeah, so it's like as if like one cannot give up chanting the holy name. Yeah, for Maharaj, he is so fluent writer that he captures every detail. As soon as something na, it's just like an artist will always have a pen or what do you call this brush, always seeing in that lines. I know an architect, yeah, software architect. As soon as when we are in a meeting, when we are talking, he brings up his very nice pouch of all different kinds of pens having different nibs, colors, and he immediately starts drawing it. Yeah, and yeah, here we see Satsvaru Maharaj as yeah, such a great blessed that he through him, yeah, just like you know this, na, that says Ganesh, yeah, writes non-stop. Hmm? Whatever is coming, every word that's being is written non-stop. That is what is the agreement also. As soon as the flow stops, he'll stop. Here we see that Satsvaru Maharaj is such a fluent, yeah, that is going on and on. So many books. You are just talking only one book. Yeah, he has already written so many books, and yeah, it's a treasure.
Yes, Prabhuji. So he used to write from the beginning with his
Yeah, he has.
expression.
I have one book. I mean, that is only one volume. Yeah, that way he has so many books, and this one volume is so thick. And this is still not about Prabhupada-līlāmṛta or yeah, like that. It is still a different book where he was with Prabhupada. He writes everything that comes to his mind, putting it in on paper very nicely.
Yes, Prabhuji. Very nice. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, just one question that came into my mind regarding when Prabhupada disciples were not willing to take prasadam late night. I mean, what should we learn from that when Prabhupada said no, we should accept, and they were eating till late.
Just follow what
Evening.
spiritual master says. That's it.
So if my spiritual master is not around me, then I have the right to reject
To reject what?
prasadam. If someone makes for me and it's late, I can reject it until unless my spiritual master tells me to eat.
There are ways how you can honor at the same time also reject. Yeah. Then for that you join our Sundarakanda 9-day session. Then you will know how to do it.
Haribol.
Yeah. Nice advertising, right? So we'll yeah, from 22nd of March to 30th of March, we will have daily Ram Katha from Sundarakanda. Yeah. So that way we'll cover this very nice tip how to satisfy at the same time maintain ourselves satisfied.
Thank you, bro.
Otherwise you won't come, right? So I'm just parking that.
I can only come with your blessings, Prabhu. Just pray that I can come.
Yeah, you are in Gauradesh. You are already blessed. Good, good. So, anything anyone want to add? Else we can close the call. Not, yeah, then thank you very much. Panchakalpatarabhyascha kripa sindhubhyeva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Śrīla Prabhupada ki jai. His Holiness Vasudha Goswami Maharaj ki. Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.